Welcome back to the Sun Dolphin series. You just clicked on episode number 3, but in episode number 1, I went to the store, brought you guys with me, and we purchased this Sun Dolphin American 12 for $699. We brought the boat back to the shop, went over a few pros and cons, and then I asked you guys to give me some suggestions on a few key parts that we needed before we designed the kit for this thing. In episode 2, we took this boat to the lake to do a pre-water test to see how this boat functions in the water straight from the store. That pre-water test gave us a good baseline and an idea of what we can and cannot do to this kit for this boat. The first question that I had for you guys that either have this boat or are going to purchase this boat when designing the kit is, do we want to make this truck bed drivable or do we want to put it on a trailer? I went through all the comments and the majority of everybody says make this truck bed drivable, which is good because that's going to do a couple things for us. Number one, it's going to keep this kit very cheap. Because we want to keep this boat lightweight, we don't need to be adding a whole bunch of stuff to it, which will help cut down the initial cost of the kit. The second thing that keeping this truck bed drivable will do is make the whole entire thing easy. Okay, it shouldn't take very long to make this kit. It shouldn't take very long to install the kit if you are the consumer. And the end product should still be very, very, very nice, efficient, and effective. And you should have a pretty good fishable plastic boat when this is all said and done. So this is the pre-planning step for this entire kit. And what we need to do is figure out how we're gonna lay this thing out. We know we want a front deck, we're gonna have a cockpit area, and we're gonna have a rear deck. In each one of these decks, we're gonna have a lid. We're gonna have a lid in the rear, and we're gonna have a lid in the front, accessing this deeper portion in both the front and the rear of the boat. So we're going to take our tape measure and we're going to figure out what the distance is between the front bench and the middle bench and the width that we have available here to stick a lid in. So right here we have every bit of 20 inches, and then width, I kind of want to stay within this curved part. 26 inches would kind of be the max. And that's going real big with this. I already ordered the dry hatches. For this front one, we went with a 20 by 16. That's going to allow us to place this right here, which is going to give us a pretty large opening for this compartment. So up front, we're going to run a 16 by 20. The back area is going to be a little bit tricky. Depending on what kind of source of propulsion you're using back here, you may need an area for fuel lines or bilge pump hoses or something like that to come through here to enter the top of the transom. But let's go ahead and try to get an idea of the area that we have to work with. From the transom to the shortest part of this rear bench, we got about 17 inches width-wise. Back here, because we're going to need framing running this way with whatever we do, we're looking at probably around 18 inches, more like 16 or 17 at most. So this hatch definitely needs to be a little bit smaller. I've already ordered this rear dry hatch as well. This lid in the rear is going to be a 13 by 14. And because this end curves so far in to the transom, that's really what's hindering us from getting a good width on this lid back here. So moving back up front, we have a few issues that we need to be concerned about. Now that we know what lid sizes to use and we have our lids, we have to determine what we're going to use as our framing material. Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is our tried and true angle aluminum. For years now, we've been using 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, 1/16 diameter angle aluminum for all of our framing, and we rivet all of that together in the boats. And usually we're doing this in an aluminum boat, but because this is a plastic stamped boat, in theory, all of these stamps should be the same and every boat should come out identical, as long as they're not warped too bad. So that's going to give us a little bit of freedom as far as what we can use for the framing material. I want to use 1 by 2 inch, 1/16 diameter rectangular tubing for the framing material. This is going to allow us to pre-cut and pre-weld this frame together so that when you order it and you receive it, it's going to be one drop-in deck that you can put in the front and a drop-in deck that you can put in the back. This is going to take away a ton of work and time from you guys, and in theory this should match up with every single one of these boats because the stamp is the same. Now, I want to talk about this front deck area first because there's a few different things that we need to take into consideration to make this work properly. Right off the bat, you can see we have a few different things going on here. Number one, the height of this bench seat is different than this plane up here in the front bench seat. And then on top of that, we have about this 1 inch lip right here that is also a different height. We got to make 3 different heights work into 1. I have a few scrap pieces here of this 1x2 tubing that I'm going to use to make some shims, so we can see if we can get this to the same height throughout all 3 of these areas, which means back here in the back I'm going to have to shim this up as well to try to hit that same height difference. And now here I'm not hitting so much, which might be a little difficult. The other way that we could possibly do this is make all this one and then run some angle right up here to try to make all that flat. The only problem there is that means in order to attach this angle to the boat, we're gonna have to come in and rivet from here into the plastic. And that means all the weight from above is gonna be in those rivets into the plastic, which I don't know how long those rivets are gonna work, and I just don't think that long term that's gonna work out. However, now that I have this 1x2 tube in here, there's a slight possibility that the only height difference here is gonna be this front lip. It looks like if I was to make a notch into there and cut that out, that this might be able to slide up onto here and still be level with the middle bench. All right, I just cut this 1x2 tube down to size, so it, you know, a workable size, I guess I should say, where this tube hits the little lip, and we're gonna see if we can notch this out and if this plane of the rectangular tube is actually gonna be flat. All right, that kind of looks like crap, but bam. You can see now that we made this cut, the whole 1x2 sits flat on both of these platforms. So as long as you make the cut right, you should be good. So I think that that's kind of one of those mods that you're gonna have to do, and we're gonna have to take that in consideration when we do the framing for this lid. So just to give you guys an idea of how my mind is working right now and how everything's spinning, we're gonna make a frame out of 1x2 rectangular aluminum. We're gonna pre-cut it, we're gonna weld it up so that it can just drop onto here. Once it drops on, you're gonna make your marks of where you need to cut that out so that this is flat and flush with this top of the bench and that top of the bench. Once you have those areas marked, you can pull everything off, cut out the areas that you need to, and drop this thing all back in there. Then we can come in with the few pieces of this angle, put it up in here, rivet it into this plastic. That way, not all the weight will be on this angle aluminum. This will be more of a support piece that is helping everything tie together. You can see some foam in here. That looks like one big block up underneath there. But I don't care what kind of boat you're working on, whether it's one of these, whether it's a aluminum boat, a deep V-hole like we have here. You can see the subfloor already in there. We always do the subfloor and the drainage area first. We work from the bottom up. You could tell in the last video, I was out fishing in the rain, and this area and this area filled up with water, you know, pretty quick, and it had a good amount in there. The positive to the boat, which we talked about in video 1, is there's 2 drain ports. One drain plug is to drain literally just this back compartment. The second one drains in between the 2 molded areas. So if we can get water into these 2 molded areas, we can always get the water out of this boat completely. The first thing we need to do is go down into the low areas of each one of these compartments, drill some holes for water to escape whenever it does get in here. I'm going to be using a 3/16 inch drill bit to do this, and I'm probably going to put 2 holes in each one just to play it safe and make sure we get everything properly out of the boat. Be very careful and cautious when doing this. Any water do not want to go through the bottom of the boat. It's going to move out to those sides, hit that channel, run all the way back to here, and then at the end of the day we could just pull the second plug and all that water will come out. Now, remember, before I did this, I told you guys, do not drill too deep. See these holes right here? You see that? Yep. I just went through the entire hole. And I flip it over. You're gonna see all my little holes all the way down this entire boat. So I have to figure out how to patch up all this stuff and what we're gonna use to do that. But you can see it's pretty easy to do. Like, I really didn't think I was going through the bottom of the hole. I didn't feel the concrete. I thought maybe there was another layer behind it and that's what the black was, but turns out the black was the bottom of the boat. I'm gonna figure out how to patch that up. And then once I know how to do that, I'll go ahead and throw that into the next video so that in case you guys do the same thing, you're gonna know how to fix it. I feel really, really dumb, but that's just something that I didn't know going into this boat. You know, I don't know, I've never torn one of these apart. I don't know what the construction of this thing is, and that's just something that can happen, I guess, when you start doing these customization things. So, but once we get those holes patched, the first thing we're gonna work on is the subfloor here in the middle, and then we'll go on to working on the front and the rear decks of this boat. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next video on the Sun Dolphin series.